Good morning, Tava Baird.
Good morning, Jennifer Taylor. I'm really excited today because the thing that we plan on doing, I think, is actually going to align with a lot of the things that Samael has been speaking to me about for the last few days.
So, our
Seriously.
intention today is for Tava to do a live bone reading for me so that you can learn a little bit about bone reading, see it in action, and then also learn from the answers that I receive and also share a little bit of the story of why I'm asking the question that I'm asking.
Jen is extremely brave to do this. I will tell you that I work with Azrael for a bone reading lately. I didn't used to. This has been a recent add in since the Fertile Ground gathering. And since Azrael has been around, the answers have been increasingly blunt and increasingly detailed. And so the fact that she's willing to put her question and inner hopes and dreams out in front of you all is a very brave thing. So hold good space for Gente today.
And honestly, I feel like I am in good company. I feel like that's kind of what I do every week to some extent is just lay it all out there. And so I feel very safe doing this. This is a very loving, supportive community. And I know that I'm doing it in the interest of everyone's learning. And so, yeah, we'll see what he has to share. So I will sing to start this off and we'll see what happens. So, as it turns out, what happens is that I open up and I start singing, and it feels like normal. And then I feel my notes getting kind of stuck in these long, low tones. And it seems like these tones feel like they just keep going on and on and on to where I'm holding them until I'm completely out of breath. And then I'm trying to quickly get a breath and keep going. And I feel like I'm kind of stuck in these sounds. And I kept thinking, something is going on. This isn't right. I kept going and kept singing, but I kept thinking, gosh, I don't think that I can stop singing these notes. It's like I'm just sort of stuck in them. And I had asked Michael and Samael for help and had some help then kind of shifting my energy into a different space. Then I found myself starting to sing the ding dong thing again. And so I thought, okay, this must be right. But I would start singing that, and then I would feel myself drawn back to these long, low notes. And then I would go back to the ding dong things. So I was kind of going back and forth until ended up with a lot of ding dongs, lots of more percussive, quick, higher sounds that felt more strongly like Michael, and ended the song and started talking to Tava and saying, "Wow, that was really different." And these long, low tones, they didn't sound bad. They weren't a disturbing sort of sound. It was just this note that just wanted to go on forever. So when you hear Samael talking about it, it wasn't that it was anything scary or negative. It didn't feel bad. It just felt like I am stuck singing this note and I feel like I might be here for the rest of my life just singing this one note. So what we ended up discovering was that I was intending to open and create a song to support our conversation. And I was also thinking about the fact that I'd had these visits with ancestors and that I was opening up to ask a question to find out what my ancestors wanted to tell me. And so what happened was that I opened up a little too much and allowed the ancestors then to come in, and their song was mixing in with Michael's song. And their song sounds very different, as you might imagine, than Michael's song. And so I could feel that I was getting stuck. I could feel this is not right. This doesn't feel like Michael. And so I was working my way out of that and did work my way out of it. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of what happened and then also because the whole idea of the song was to set the space for our discussion, and it's always to set a sacred space and hold certain boundaries for everyone in the podcast. Samael had advised, and we were definitely on board with taking that song out and replacing it with another one that did exactly what it was that we were intending. So the song that you are about to hear does not have those long, low tones and the ding donging and the back and forth. This is the song that we recorded again in order to ensure that we were setting just the right space for you. But after the song plays, then you will hear us go right into the discussion of what Samael was telling us about the tones and him helping us to understand why the songs were the way that they were and what was going on. So I just wanted to stick this in here so things will make a little bit more sense as you're trying to follow us through this podcast.
Samael said, the mournful sound, the long tones, the keening and calling, this is the influence of the ancestors in your house wanting to speak. They would make your song theirs. They wish you to give them voice. Break it with oscillating tones, percussion. Use the bell to break their hold. You started ding donging a little bit. And when that happened, he heard you say ding once and he went, yes, yes, faster. This is why we spoke of bells first. And I was just about to cut it and interrupt you and go faster, ding dong. And then you started doing it on your own, right? And he said to me, much of what they see and hear vibrates in the length. So the frequencies that they tend to be acquainted with and express when they are still doing their work here in this realm have long frequencies, right? He said they speak that way. It is familiar to them. They do not mix in the short frequencies often. So if you start to feel like, and because we've been talking about them a lot, and that they're now like, oh, she's aware of me, and they're wanting to kind of get your voice to speak like they speak. And he's saying to break the hold of that, go to percussion, go to the quicker ding dong, like use that bell idea to break up the space. They are very comfortable in long, low tones. And it struck me when we talk when it's like Halloween what are the sound that we always say ghosts make? Now, ghosts can make technically any sound in the world, but
Yeah,
when
it's
kids are
that
pretend,
moaning, like sorts of things. Yeah, it's like all the
oh,
creepy sounds are long,
yes.
low tones.
Yes, yes. That's the
Whoa.
tones. That's how they speak. And those are the frequencies that they are comfortable with and they manipulate and they travel on and all of that. So it appears that because of our recent discussion of what's been going on in your house and you starting to think about your ancestors more, that when you opened to song, they went, oh, let's add in how we talk. Let's see
And
if we
when
can
you
get
think
her to
about it,
sing.
my question was going to be about their messages for me. It was really fascinating. So as I'm singing, I'm feeling around, and my hand went to this place, and I was manipulate as my hand would move through this space. It felt initially like a trumpet, or like it was shaped like the big didgeridoos in the background. It felt like I was holding that, and it was like this trumpet kind of feeling that I was sending out, and my hands were shaping that cylinder, and then they would stretch out, and as my hand would move around the cylinder in different places, the tone would change in my voice, and the sounds that were happening that were not necessarily, I wasn't making the sounds, I wasn't initiating the sounds were coming through me, but I wasn't initiating the sounds, and they would change as I would move and feel around in that space, which happens a
Mhm.
lot of times with Michael, only it's usually up and diagonally to the right. And as it's like when I find that place that has this intense resonance where it gets louder, the tones change and get stronger, I know I've found the place. So as I was tuning into that, it was like I was finding the places then where it was most resonant. But once I got there, it was like I couldn't stop. I was
Yeah.
holding the notes to a point that I was like, I held them until I completely ran out of breath. And I felt like I couldn't stop. And that's when I was like, okay, I need some angelic support. And I kind of called out for Michael and Samael. And it's interesting because in my head, I heard Samael telling you, like, tell her to stop. She needs to break this. And it's so interesting to me because in that moment, he was actually telling you that I needed to break up these long notes with the percussion, and he was actually giving you the same sorts of information that I was hearing him in my mind tell you. I do want to clarify that when I say I couldn't stop, it's not like I was, possessed and I like actually totally couldn't stop. But in my following of the guidance and in my following of the feelings that I was getting, which is what I usually do with Michael. And so I was trying to really follow the guidance that I was being given, which was this feeling of don't stop, don't stop. But it's not like I was actually physically incapable of stopping. So I felt like I should probably clarify that a little bit because, when I say I felt like I couldn't stop, that probably has a very different interpretation than how it actually was. But it was more that I was following the guidance and following this sense of I'm trying to bring through the exact sounds and tones that I am tapped into, and all of that guidance was don't stop, don't stop. So I wanted to be sure and clarify that. So as I'm feeling into the guidance and the help from Samael and Michael, I then shift into this way that I work often where I'm looking through my third eye and kind of looking into another realm, looking for information. And so at that point, I saw this little bell ringing. There was this sense of this tiny, high pitched little bell. And I think that was the bell that you heard me, that you were like, I did this little ding thing. That
Yes.
was the ding of the bell that I found that just sort of appeared. And then it was going off into the distance diagonally to the right in front of me. I guess that was Michael and Samael's way of being like the bell, you need to do the
Well,
bell.
um, the opening up to the ancestors, they are wanting now to come and visit and to talk and to have this, and it's coming through in the song. But because they tend to operate much more slowly and time is important to them, and their vibration is very different from, say, Michael's. There's a tendency to get stuck in it. They're not being malicious. They're just, it's kind of like you've gone into their living room and sunk into the sofa, and now time has no meaning anymore. And so percussion and the bells and those short, you know, dong ding dong, like as you started picking up speed, you couldn't see it because your eyes were closed. But when your eyes were open and you started ding donging faster, Samael is over here going, yes, 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 like that you're doing. And I'm over here on the going like this, because you got it. That's what he was trying to tell you. If you feel stuck like that, pull yourself out of it. Short frequencies, percussive bursts will dispel that energy. It's not disrespectful to them. It's just that you don't belong in that energy for very long.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I actually got to see and hear what was happening as ancestors came to visit and wanted to try to speak through you and pull you into their frequency. And Samael is telling you how to stay balanced by pulling yourself back into a more embodied frequency, which is to counteract those long, low tones with these short bursts.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating to me that you would be just about to interrupt me to tell me something and I would have shifted into it. It's like
Yeah, it happened like
it gives
twice.
me a lot of peace to know that I was receiving the messages ahead of time. It's like I'd started doing the things that were sending me on the right path. I realized something told me you're
Yeah.
getting stuck and you need to break it. And it's so validating because every now and then I will hear, it's so funny, I'll hear like you telling me something from Samael in my head, like it'll be your voice for Samael saying it, and I'll think, is that really Samael telling me something? And it was.
It
So
was really,
that's
there
super
were
validating as well.
absolutely, there were two different occasions where I went, is she in the woods? And he would be like, wait, wait. He had completely stopped giving me any message to write and was just watching. Sort of like, let's see if the kid can swim on her own, but if we need to, I'm going in the pool to pull her
Yeah,
out.
but I'm ready
And
to
then,
save her as well.
yeah, and so I was just like sitting there, and then I would literally have my hand on the mouse to take off my mute, and all of a sudden you would start to pick up the tempo or you would start to ding and he would go, yes, 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 wait, 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 like, and literally twice I almost interrupted you and then stopped and you pulled yourself out, and I was like, okay, all
Well,
right,
I am
I'm
so glad to have such good lifeguards because the Gen X
yeah.
version of parent lifeguards would have been like, ah, she'll be fine. I'm going to get a cup of coffee.
No, I mean, he was having me watch, and I had what I was supposed to say to you, and my finger was on the button, and he was just like, wait, 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 wait. Because I think he was also talking to you and wanted to see if it would come through in your natural way of learning it so that you could experience the whole thing without, me kind of running in and blowing the lid off. At the same point, he didn't want you to get so in
Too
the weeds you
far.
couldn't get back out.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah,
Well, we
we
haven't
need to
gotten
tell the
that far
story.
because things have gone
Oh,
so far off the rails.
we will have to have you tell the story next because people who are listening are going to go, what is going on? So,
So, to help catch up our listeners who are
yes.
probably like, what is happening? And you're not wrong. We're sort of in that place too. So yesterday, my husband gets up really, really like dark 30. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning so that he can go run, and usually outside in the dark. And he gets out in the hallway, and nobody else is in the house downstairs. It's just my daughter and I asleep upstairs, and the dog is even upstairs. And he hears all these voices, and he's like, did our daughter like leave on her iPad or something? Like all these voices talking. He's like, what is going on? And he goes downstairs, and in my parents' den, the TV was on. And they're out of town. They've been out of town for like a week and a half, but the TV was on. And he was like, oh, this is creeping me out. And he walks into the room and he just hears SpongeBob say, I've died and gone to heaven. And he's like, okay, this is too much, and like grabs the thing and turns off the TV. It's like, all right, that was a lot. And then he's like, all right, maybe, I don't know, some sort of power surge, something, but I'm just gonna go. And he goes about his morning and he's looking at something on his phone, and this new Omnia song comes up. And Omnia is a really amazing band. I want to say somewhere in the Netherlands, but they're very kind of tribal and spiritual and very pagan kind of band. And
Oh
there's
my God,
this
they're
release.
incredible.
They're so amazing. Definitely look up Omnia. We will put a link to them because they're amazing. I don't remember what the song was called, but it was basically talking about how when you die, that's not the end, and it doesn't have to be a sad thing, and our spirit continues, and the whole thing is about death, and it has something to do with the butterfly. And the whole thing is about death. And he's like, okay, so, all right, what is today's date? Who died today? And it was really interesting that he went straight to there. He was like, who in our family died today? And as soon as I get up, he's like, okay, who died today? I'm like, I don't know. And so we're going through all these different things. And I said, all right, there's a family Bible somewhere in one of my parents' rooms that will have that kind of stuff. And so it's like, you go to work, and I'll start trying to figure out who died today. It was interesting. I opened up this Bible, which isn't even, I guess, the one that I had intended to find, because somewhere it's actually all written. And I found these things from my great grandfather, and he died on June 15th. And this was the morning of June 16th. And I'm like, okay, this is probably him. And then I'm like, we don't talk about him all that much. I don't know, like maybe I should keep looking. And I keep digging, and I keep coming across things from that specific couple, from that great grandfather and his wife. And I knew him when I was a kid. He was around when I was a kid. So I knew him, but nobody, I don't think, really had a relationship with him. He was very, very closed off. And really the only way we talk about it is sort of a little bit in jest, because we're like, oh, don't, you're going to be like great granddaddy Lyle and just sit behind his newspaper. He came back from a war, and he pretty much just would sit in his chair in the living room and open up his newspaper and hold it basically as a wall between him and everybody else in the family. And, as a kid, it's like he wouldn't interact with anybody. He wouldn't really talk to anybody. He would just come in, eat his dinner, head down, and kind of back out. And the only thing he would really talk about was his garden. He would give you a tour of his garden, and he loved that. And there's the only time you ever heard him talk. So I'm like, okay, I think this might be him. And, the death date certainly lines up. And so I'm like, okay. I sat down with my pendulum and Archangel Michael, and I feel like I was asking Michael, okay, is this the family member that we're talking about? Is that what it is? And I felt like Michael guided me to the questions to ask and to the information. And basically what I came to was that there are these boxes in our basement. There's one box for each family member, and we have a ton of them. It's like, my great grandmother, my great grandfather, my other great great grandmother and grandfather on the other side, my grandmothers and my grandfather, like all of these people. And there's a box from each of them that has things that, for whatever reason, were collected in that box that seemed like they were special to them, that they somehow represented them, or had like really neat kinds of information or documents. I honestly don't even know what's in these boxes, because nobody's been in them in years. And I was drawn to the awareness that there are these boxes down there that have the energies of these people in my family. And I felt like I was being shown that my great grandmother, there was some maybe object or something that has her spirit still attached to it. And in the last year, we have had like everything in our house break, every major household thing break. And we were like, well, it's been about 10 years. Things break. That's what we've replaced both HVAC systems, all of our hot water things, all these tiny little things keep breaking. And I had this awareness of like, I think that might be why things are breaking. We need to do something with the stuff in the house, and we need to address it. And I was also aware that this cardinal that had delivered messages to myself and my husband from my grandmother, like, gosh, I don't know how many months back, when the
Like
coyote
three
energy
months or
thing came
something.
in,
Yeah, maybe.
that kept incessantly pecking at our dining room window. It had been doing that again in earnest. Only I didn't realize until I think yesterday that it's a male cardinal. It was a female cardinal that had been doing this, and this is a male cardinal that has now been obsessively pecking at. It will like fly up and peck like it's knocking on the window. I mean, just to the point that it's like my daughter's like, that cardinal is making me insane. Like, you hear it all the time. And we kept going, we really need to connect with the cardinal again and see what the deal is. But because it's been going along so long now, we were like, okay, maybe there's just something kind of wrong with that cardinal. Like, I don't know what's going on. But I'm starting to think that might have been him leading up to this, going, I've been trying to get your attention and it's not working. So we had decided then that my question for the bone reading today was going to be about, what is it that this ancestor or these ancestors are trying to tell me? And also, Tava has been incredibly gracious and loving and has spent Marco after Marco in the last 24 hours laying out, trying to help us with what do we do with all this stuff. Because I have a household, we built our house together with my parents when they retired, and we have a collection of like probably 10 different people in our family who have died stuff, and we don't know what to do with all of it and how to sort through it. And she laid out the most beautiful plan for what to do with each of the different things, how to process them, how to know what to do with them, and honorable things to do for the things that we don't really want to have in our home anymore. And Samael was starting to chime in as well with some advice around this. And so I will hand it over to Tava now, see what you want to add about this.
So I do have, and I think this is going to be interesting. I think this might be a little core to pull back into. When you first started singing, Samael did have some other words. And I'm going to go ahead and read those because I think it will sort of set the tone for us even more going forward. So when you first started to sing, he said, and I had mentioned this to you earlier, before you started singing, he said, it is time to pull things into center. And then once you started to sing, he said, expansion. Spring was rapid expansion, but each expansion must come with a period of drawing in, ebb and flow, opening and closing, lest the brilliance burn you from the inside out. This spring, new guides entered, your reach extended, but there are others closer that have much to teach, unique lessons, and most have been embodied at one time and understand your world. Spirits of nature, ancestors, those you loved, hear them now. Draw into their comforting embrace. Connect to your common experience of embodiment and learn. Center, ground, and prepare for the next expansion, which is on its way. Tend to your food, dust your shelves, sweep out the detritus from months past. It accumulated around you as we pulled you to new places. Sort through and sit by the creek. Remember your humanity along with your divinity. A new group arrives soon, Umshala. A new group that will require much in the way of teaching. So we had quite the
Ooh.
spring, and he's telling us there will be another expansion coming shortly. But we spent a lot of spring really reaching towards the divine, connecting. You were connecting more with Michael, and Gabriel came in. And I mean, you had a ton of people coming in. And I got, Azrael riding shotgun to Samael here with the bones. And we went through this really rapid, both in our human communities and in our spiritual communities. They just kind of went whoop. I went from, hey, I think I can hear things, to, oh, look, there's a whole bunch of ghosts walking around. We expanded very, very quickly. And we were really reaching into these divine spaces with these big energies. And I think he's telling us now we need to take a little breather. And during that breather, it's not that we're going to stop connecting and reaching, it's that there are other guides and entities that are closer to home that we might not have really tuned into as much before. These ancestors whose things are in your basement, who want to come upstairs and sing along with you. And now we can pull back in a little bit, dust our shelves, go through our items, sort through our objects, center and ground, nourish ourselves, hold feasts in celebration of our ancestors. And if you think of that, we do that at the 4th of July, right? That's a celebration of, the people who founded our country and the people who, walked before us. That this little break or little breather we have is a time to sort of do things closer to home because that next expansion is on its way. And so this seems like the perfect time to go through your boxes in the basement.
Boy, does it ever. Well, and it's interesting because he was talking about connecting with those closer around you at the same time that I was actually doing that, but too much so. Like I opened the doors way too much.
Yes.
So I'll be interested in additional advice that he might have on how to do that in a balanced way so that you don't get in the weeds, how to strike a balance with that. The other thing that struck me was the things closer to home, and he said nature, and I had that fox that came in and had
Yes.
been wanting to connect with me, and I realized I'd never really worked with that as well. And oh my goodness, and the fox came into me again this morning when I had this bad dream. So we were doing an animal communication session with our dog, with a wonderful, 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 wonderful animal communicator and energy worker. And during that session, we had a question for him of something we wanted to work with. And he was like, nope, I need you to deal with this first. And he was giving her this vision of this scent trail that was like coming like an old black and white cartoon of how like the scent trail from like a pie travels through the house and like the dog like lifts up its nose and sucks it in. And that's the image he was giving her. And so we were trying to figure out what is this energy that's moving through the house. And now I'm starting to think, I didn't think about that till now. Maybe we didn't end up down the right trail of thinking maybe it was family energy from
Hmm.
downstairs. And she asked the house, and the house said, there's something here that shouldn't be here. It's not a bad thing, but it doesn't belong here in the house, was what the house energy said. And then this fox burst into the session and was like, wait, 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 I need you. Like, I need attention. I've been trying to get through all of her barriers and, her boundaries, and I need attention. And I've been trying to connect with her being me. And so this fox sort of barges into our session and is like, she needs to connect with me. And the fox was demonstrating this whole, I need a safe place to have my babies. And like, will you let me in? Will you give me this place? And at the time we thought we were talking about like an actual maybe physical fox outside that wanted to come and have her babies in our land. And we were like, of course, you're welcome. But it turned out that it was actually the energy of fox. It was acting out for me. It was acting this desperate mother who just wants a safe place for her children and is worried about the safety of her children. It was acting that out, showing me that I am just have this desperate thing of being able to have a safe place and feel like my children are safe and protected and I can just raise my children. And she said she felt like it was actually trying to show me that about myself, and that the fox said it was here to listen and guide, and showed me this place, how it would accompany me into the woods, into this like sort of glade where I would sit on this rock and receive messages, and the fox would be with me. So this morning, I wake up having a really terrifying dream that was again me needing to protect my daughter and feeling really in danger and just desperate to protect her at all costs. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's what. And I was like, okay, what is this energy? What is the thing? And I was trying to boil down the message of the symbolism for my dream. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's exactly like what that fox was feeling of just desperation. And so now I'm wondering if part of the types of things that Samael's talking about of those that are in body and close to nature might be needing to connect with that fox.
Yes. Yes. I think
I
how are
cannot
we
wait to
how
see what's going to come out in this
I'm
bone
I'm
reading.
like I'm starting to look over at the bones and I'm like
Oh,
I'm
it's
starting to
time.
feel like this might be a
Oh, yeah.
good segue. Now, I do not have my additional camera that actually shows you the bone setup because it's too many ports here. So I'm going to turn this. What you're mostly going to see is like the back of my head, and I apologize, but I am going to be able to move our brand new swanky mic over.
And maybe you can kind of describe for people what it is that you're looking at,
Yes.
like what you have there.
All right. So for those of you who haven't had a bone reading or done bone casting before, this is my absolute favorite form of divination. And there aren't that many people who do it anymore. You walk into like a psychic fair, you're going to run into a lot of people with oracle decks and tarot cards. And at least my experience has been um, you might see one bone reader or none. I try very hard to tell as many people about bone reading as I can. It is osteomancy, which is using bones to predict the future or to answer questions or to connect with your ancestors, is one of the oldest forms of divination we have. And using bones to connect in that way is done in a ton of cultures. And I won't get into all of the history of it right now because, well, but I did write a little book that talks about how I read bones and how to teach yourself to do it. That goes with the classes that I teach. There is also an incredible book by Catherine Ironwood. And if you look her up online, she is a veteran. I think she might even be in like her 80s now. Um, Hoodoo instructor, and her last name is spelled Yronwood, and I can't think if there's an E at the front or not. But she has, in my opinion, the best book out there on the history of osteomancy and bone reading. And I would absolutely recommend that you get it. And I will put a link to it in our show notes so you can just click on it and see what the book looks like. Now, this particular form of divination, the version that I'm doing, there are forms of bone divination, like I said, for China. Native Americans did it in places, from what I understand. I know in Scotland there was a version. Literally, it's been used all over. But this particular form is closest to a version that was brought over from Africa to the Americas with the enslaved. And I've also been lucky enough to teach some people who have a version that's very similar to this that was in South America. So we have kind of some of this is a little bit South American and Central American. The roots of what the version that I'm doing came over from Africa, took root in New Orleans, and then it moved its way up through the mountains. And it picked up traditions of the settlers that were there. And from what I understand, also some of the Native American groups. I did spend some time down in New Orleans looking for bone readers and discovered that they are very hard to find. It appears that the old way of doing it is sort of dying out down there and being replaced with everyone's using tarot instead. And I actually had doubts about, I'd been doing it for a while, but I had doubts about teaching it because I am the whitest white girl that ever lived. I mean, like I'm so white, people. Take me out in the sun and watch me turn into a lobster. My heritage is Scottish, Irish, Norse, and some German. I'm so Northern European, it's not even funny. And so I actually went down and I went to Voodoo Authentica. which is a fantastic cultural center and shop right in the French Quarter. And I went in actually to have a reading there with an extremely talented woman. And my question for her was, I bone read. I want to keep this practice alive, but I'm super white. Am I allowed to teach this to people? Because the version that I teach has its basis in Africa. And I had the most incredible reading I've ever had from someone in my life. And we had a whole discussion about it. And basically, what came out of it is if we don't have teachers to teach it, whoever they are, who are teaching it in good faith and teaching its history, it may die out. And that would be much worse than the fact that a white girl is spreading the word, right? So I tell everybody where it came from, and I try to do everything I can to honor the beautiful heritage of this technique. I in no way invented this. In no way is it my own. I'm sure it's picked up little bits from the way that I do things in my own practice, but I just wanted to be very clear up front where this came from and to honor its history. In front of me, I have a collection of objects. Some of them are made of bones, some of them are not, but you call them all your bone kit or your bones. The bones I am using that are actual bone are ethically collected. They came from a desert in northern Arizona. There is a retired wildlife biologist out there who collects them for me, cleans them, and then I purchase them from him. And I ask the bones if they want to work with me. And a lot of times when they come to my house, I sing to them. And that's why my little book on bone casting is called Singing to the Bones. And I do actually have just recently begun this last week. I am now offering bone reading services, and you can find that in my Etsy shop if you are interested in having a reading of your own. So in front of me, I have chosen a long bone that will represent communication, an antique domino that will represent family, a lovely little resin raven skull that my friend Kathy at Idle Hands made me for career, an antique key for the home, a large coin for finances, a little small coin. Where did it go? Small coin for love, a spiral seashell for the spirit. And seashells are kind of bones of the sea, right? An eye, little metal eye charm for a beginning, tiny little black resin human skull for an ending, hagstone or holdstone. But Jen, I think you actually gave this to me.
Oh, yeah. It
And
came from Scotland.
it came from Scotland. This is representative of a portal or a gate. I have a small crystal for the spirit, piece of sea glass for travel, a curved coyote fang for friends, a large fang for spirit guides, a section of a spine for power and defense, a small ridged bone for opportunity, a large organically shaped bone that's been weathered away. Parts of it have been smoothed by the desert for the mind. And this little thing that isn't actually a knuckle bone, but I call it the knuckle bone. It's a little joint bone for the physical body. There's also a large crystal for self reflection. And I have a long, thin, pointed seashell and a triangular shaped bone that are going to be used as pointers. These things are going to tell me pay special attention to this when they fall. I do also have a little die over here, a little die with numbers 1 through 6, if we need to ask questions about time, and 3 cowrie shells that I can cast for yes or no questions. If you go down to New Orleans, you'll find these in jars at a lot of the cash registers of some of the metaphysical shops. The cowrie shell is representative of the female divine. Can you guess why? If you look at the opening. And I've got those over here. And then with me, I have a little Lilith charm that I like to have with me when I cast. And my bone mat is a hand painted leather bone mat that I made. And I make them from time to time, pop them up in my Etsy shop. But it has actually Azrael's sigil and symbols painted on it. So when I try to talk to Azrael directly, I get four overlapping voices, and it's enough to make you nuts. I don't hear him nearly as clearly as I hear Samael. So Samael let me know that Azrael would like to talk to me through bones. So this is how we communicate. Um, Now, Jen, we've got spirit guides and your ancestors and things here, but I have some extra bones in this basket. If there's anybody else in particular or any other, like we could put a bone in to represent those boxes, or we could put a bone in to represent the fox. If you want to add a bone, we can do that. It's
Um,
totally up to you.
do you have a feeling about what which ones we should represent, or both, the fox and
The ancestors.
the
So
ancestor, or
the
like maybe the
ancestors,
specific ancestor, or maybe
yeah,
just
we could put in. So I'm wanting to put in something very natural or nature like for the fox. And I have this little nut, but it looks like it's been kind of cut open and exposed. And those feelings that you were talking about were feeling exposure and a franticness. So I think we might want to put in this little nut, perhaps,
that
for the
sounds great.
fox and the connection to nature. So I'm just going to make a note of that here so I don't forget it. And then when you were describing your great grandpa Lyle, and you were talking about his newspaper and that he'd been in a war. And all I could think was that, like, the war is still with him, and that he struck me. I have this lovely little stone here, and he just seems like a very strong, almost like a stone in his personality. Like,
Yeah,
there's his presence, but he's very quiet. So I was thinking maybe this could be great grandpa Lyle here.
that sounds great.
So we're going to put in a stone for great grandpa Lyle.
Oh boy, I have this like huge welling of energy coming up as soon as I started thinking about him, and you were saying his name, and I was seeing the ship that, like, there's like a painting of a ship that was always above, or a picture of the ship that brought him home from World War II, hung above their mantle. And I had this image of that as you were talking about it, and I have felt this strong presence of him.
Was he in the Navy during World War II? Or did he just
I,
come home
I,
on a ship?
I don't know. I know he came home on a ship, but I don't know what branch of the military he was in when he was there.
So this may be related or may not. On Saturday, I was in a mausoleum in West Virginia teaching a tea leaf reading and a jar scrying class. And for jar scrying, it's kind of like looking into a crystal ball. Oh my God, I just realized this. I I had brought the herbs that you grow in your garden with me to the class. And the way we made our jars to scry was I gave everybody a smooth crystal, like a smooth glass jar with no markings on it that came straight from the store. Then we all chose herbs that had been Reiki charged by you and grown in your garden
You know
and
where
put
they had
them,
been stored?
oh my God, not in the same room.
They were dried in that room.
Okay, then this is going to knock your socks off. We filled the jars with water and we took a few moments. And I said, we're just going to take a first little thing because a lot of people in the group hadn't scried before. That's why they were in the class. And I said, we're going to take some deep breaths. You're going to try to look through the jar, not into it. Let your eyes sort of rest, let your breath settle. Everybody had a pen and a notebook next to them. And I said, if you want to, write down what you see. Just see what's the first thing that you get. And what was really strange for me is a lot of times I get, trees and because I do these, I scry in all these classes. This time I got a military scene with with fires in the distance and a huge ship in the foreground. And it really kind of rocked my world because I don't think when scrying I've ever gotten a military scene. And my dad was in the Navy, right? But there was an entire war going on in that jar with things on fire in the water and a sinking ship and bodies under the water, like you were watching it happen. And I just bring this up because this was Saturday and we are now on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, and
And
Monday
you've
morning
been,
or Sunday was his death anniversary. Monday
yeah.
was the early morning when my husband had all this discovery.
And I had filled that jar with herb that now apparently were drying in the same room with his items.
Okay.
Hi, Grandpa, great
Oh,
Grandpa Lyle.
yeah. Oh
Okay,
boy.
well, the connections just keep. And for those of you listening, I swear to God, I did not know this beforehand. Like, this is
Yeah.
rocking my world right
Yeah, I
now.
mean, we've never ever talked about him, and all of
No,
this
I
stuff
didn't even
happened
know.
after that. I mean, we would have no reason to ever be like, you know what hung above my great great grandfather's mantle?
Yeah,
A giant
yeah.
naval ship.
So, based on all of this, I feel pretty confident saying that, yes, that's if I had to get put my 2 cents in on who you're hearing from. But it just, I didn't even, as soon as you started talking about the ships, I was like, wait, I had a really funky naval scene when I was scrying on Sunday afternoon in this cemetery. And by the way, that cemetery, I came to find out, has a lot of veterans buried in it. Like there's a lot of veterans buried in that cemetery. And it was my first time teaching a class in this mausoleum. So, yeah. And then I was like, oh my God, we filled the scrying jars with herbs from Jen's house. And all right then.
Which have always had such incredible energy until like the day before his death anniversary when he had a message.
All right, it's time to cast these bones. Um,
Okay.
I'm going to I already spritzed it, but I'm going to do it again. I have a lovely, someone bought me as a gift. It's called Smokeless Smudge Spray, which it's an alternative to burning sage. It's got like witch hazel in it and distilled water and crystal and stuff in it. And I'm just going to kind of hose down the area here from any past energies because I was bone reading quite a bit for people in this last week. I am now going to put the bones in my hands, and there's a lot of them, so this may take me a moment. I'm going to hold them over. Anything that falls outside the circle does not want to be read. And I'm just going to take a moment to ground and center. Azrael, please help us hear what the ancestors have to say. Any message that they have for Jenn. Give us insight. And the bones fall. Okay. Let me see what's come outside. Huh. The fox is outside the circle and does not want to be read right now.
Okay.
I'm thinking that we might want to do a separate reading about the fox, but perhaps that's a completely separate, it's going to
Yeah,
require its own
that
casting
makes sense.
because it sounds like there's a lot to unpack there. The long bone for communication is outside the circle. The spiral shell for the spirit has fallen outside the circle. I'm removing it. Travel and a beginning are outside the circle. I'm going to remove them. And let's take a look at, oh, so one of the pointers is the tip of it is actually lodged underneath the key, which is your home, as in
Oh
pay
boy.
special attention to this. And the spine, which is power and defense, is holding up the other side of the key. So we have the pointer saying, Pay special attention to this and the fact that there is a self power and defense supporting your home are all in a little grouping. So that's interesting. I'm going to tell you what else is kind of grouped together. The ridge bone is almost three quarters, actually, it's on its way out, its opportunity. I'm going to remove it from this reading because it's way off by its own, by itself. It's in the past. We're not going to go into that. Here are finances and a crystal for the spirit over here. I think that has to do with power of story over here. Where is my other pointer? Oh, I have another pointer acting as a little bit of a wall. They have a friend leading you to a spirit guide. Gee, I wonder who that is. Up with Grandpa Lyle and an ending. Hey, Grandpa Lyle, friend, a spirit guide, and an ending all together. And those are separated from a pointer that is family and a gate or portal over there. And the raven skull is pointing towards them. I'm just kind of outlining what I see, and then I'm going to take a moment and actually read them for you.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I love hearing you, like the way that you're seeing it and how,
Yes.
how you're putting that together.
Self reflection is that crystal is sitting right on top of love near the center, and dead center of the whole thing is the physical body and the mind. And the physical body bone is pointing down to that key and spine and pointer grouping. So give me just a quick second here. Grab my notebook and put all of these connections together. All right, I've got it.
Ooh.
Yes.
While I was waiting, I put my like massive chunk of black tourmaline down between my feet on my grounding mat. I'm like, I think I could use a little
Yeah, that might
extra
be a good
grounding.
thing. So this is actually really neat. Um, so I wanted sometimes when I'm talking about the bones, I tend to pick them up and fiddle with them. And so I was like, let me take a picture right now before they've moved. And so I've just texted it to you so that you'll have it. And I can also send you a key of what, because I already have one typed up of what each one thinks. Okay, here is what we have to say. Okay. When we look at the spiral bone and the key and the spine, they are also sitting right on a border. Okay. And they're sitting on the border to the west of the circle. A lot of times when I see something fall on the west and it falls on the border, and especially because we're looking at a protection and a home bone, I'm looking at there is a line of defense there. Your ancestors are defending your home as you open, and apparently they've been doing this already for some time. So as you've been calling in Gabriel and Michael and everybody else with your singing, they have been kind of hanging out trying to filter what's coming in that can actually reach you, right? So it says your ancestors are defending your home as you open. They wish to be part of your daily life. They are also confused at times about the path that you're on because your spirituality is so different from what they practiced. They understand what an angel is, but they'd like you to speak to them more about what you're doing so that they can help. Right? Okay. Your ancestors are defending your home as you open. They wish to be part of your daily life. They are also confused at times about the path that you're on. They understand angels, but would like you to speak to them so they can help. They think they can be a source of power and learning for you. So you have already that this has been going on for some time. These ancestors are popping in and out. They might not, I don't think they're residing permanently in your house, although a lot of their energy is around, But because you're there, your family is there, and your mom and dad live in the house too, they are very much like, "Well, we gotta keep the borders of this house safe." However, their own energy, I have a feeling, is probably causing some things to malfunction. And you have a crazy cardinal, so like, but they're doing their best. They're wanting to help. I actually have a message directly from Grandpa Lyle. Grandpa Lyle would like something of his placed in your garden. Now,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I
his
don't
whole
know.
garden thing.
Yes, I don't know where Grandpa Lyle was from. Did he have an accent of any sort? Like, did he have a little bit of a southern accent or something?
Oh, he definitely would have had a southern accent. Yeah.
Because I heard, I know gardens, and though I don't talk much, I know roots. So
Yes.
I was getting this like southern, and honest to God, I don't know where your parents are from, but I was definitely getting this.
Yeah,
You have this,
southwestern Virginia. So, yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
I know
Roanoke.
gardens, he said. I know gardens.
He
So he
does.
would love you to put something out in the garden and maybe speak to him when you are out in the garden because he thinks he can help out there with the plants and with all of the energies that you put in. Now, I have a little aside that isn't really associated that has to do with spirit and finances, but we'll come back to that. Then I'm looking at the physical body and the mind and self-reflection and love that were all tied together. Your ancestors have great love for you. They also feel that you are troubled in your mind by sort of seeing them as a ghost sort of thing. And so they said, don't set yourself away from us because we've left our bodies. Learn our stories and share them. Like they would very much like you to look through old letters or old family stories and talk about them. Tell your daughters the stories, talk about them to keep, bring them up, and sort of they want to be not in that closet, but around. And the fact that you have all these other energies coming in, they're like, well, we want to be there too. We want to be part of that. Okay. Now, this I found really interesting. We had the family bone, the domino, and the gate. The domino is perched on top of the gate, right? They are very much connected. And we're like not surprised about that because suddenly we seem to have discovered a new gate where now your family is reaching out and wants to talk. But what was interesting to me is that the little raven skull, the career bone was pointed, the beak was pointed straight at that. And so what I got from that was you have more ancestors that want to come visit and talk. Like start talking to Grandpa Lyle, but soon you're going to get great grandma Lyle. There's going to be more of them that want to make themselves heard. And they're all willing to lend their energy to being on the boundaries and guarding you from things as best they can because they remember what it's like to have a physical body and how hard it is to be in one. But they also now have the ability to sort of do things or walk places and see things that you might not see coming. So they very much want to protect. Okay. And here's what I got from that with career bone. More want to come visit. And then speaking about this to others is a new branch for your career when you heal people. So you've been spending a lot of time healing people and helping to clear attachments and helping them to walk through these things. But it seems to be that if you start to tell more of your ancestors' stories, you are then going to be able to create, it's going to be a new area for your career to grow into in your practice as a healer to encourage people to look into their own pasts, to look into their own stories, to look into the stories of their ancestors, and to call on them for assistance and to honor them. You were just talking about, the ideas I had for going through things you think would be helpful to so many people. Well, these ideas are now yours, right? They're something that you now know, and that there may be people that you are already healing who could benefit from that. And that offering a service or offering a workshop or something on the thing that you're doing right now shortly could actually assist a lot of them and be an additional thing that you talk about as a healer. So that is one of the things that's going to be in there, is that it's this opportunity you have now to talk with your extended family that aren't currently in their bodies. Also, that experience is going to help others and be beneficial for your family in the future. Right. And especially when we're at this time, there's a lot going on in our country, and a lot, we are a country of immigrants. We are. Unless you're Native American, you migrated here, or one of your ancestors did. And in that migration, while our ancestors were looking for new opportunities and safety and a place to practice their faith in the way that they wanted, they were chasing the American dream. A lot of things did get left behind. That tie to that village or town that maybe their family had been in for generations, ties to a lot of traditions. A lot of those things were lost. And in our effort to fit in a new country, a lot of families shed their old languages, they shed their old traditions, they anglicized their children's names or their own names. And one of the things that we all need is to remember that we all come from somewhere, that we all have roots, because doing those things helps us to create a sense of place, a sense of where we are in time, a sense of connection that we are not alone. There's that phrase you see on the internet all the time that's like, you are the result of 1,000 loves. It's true, right? Our ancestors went through they went through wars, they went through hardship, they went through immigration. They did all of these things, and they tried to hold on to their roots while not secluding themselves. And so, at the same time that we are celebrating unity and diversity, we also need to look back into our pasts and say, where did I come from? What powerful things happened? Who are not just the heroes that I see today, but who are the heroes from my own past? Let me walk strong and tall and stand in not just my own power, but the power of my ancestors. And I think that you have a unique opportunity as a healer to pass messages like that on to others who maybe have difficulty or having difficulty getting their feet underneath them and finding their own power. So I found that really interesting. And then what I also got from the little grouping of the bones, that was an ending, a friend pointing, curving up to, or friends curving up and pointing to a spirit guide, and Grandpa Lyle's lovely, lovely little stone up there, is that this may take a little practice. You are very used to bringing song through from angels, right? But today, when your ancestors wanted to sing, you were like, whoa, what is this? I'm kind of stuck. I feel like I'm kind of being pulled into this other space that is uncertain for me, that is uncomfortable for me, and that might not vibe as well with being embodied. It didn't necessarily feel great. Grandpa Lyle said, until you are able to hear me better, perhaps out in the garden, perhaps when you're out there communing with nature and you're both around something that you loved, that you're going to be able to sing out there and get messages from him or hear him or get impulses or images or things through meditation or dance when you're down in that garden. He says, until that time, you don't have to rely just on song if it's not jiving well with you. He says to go ahead and use Samael or other people who have guides. If you're like, I think I've got this message, can you confirm? Use me to be like, Yeah, don't worry about that because you're going to get to a place where you're able to connect with him and your other ancestors really well, and then you won't need that anymore. In the meantime, use me and abuse me or any other friends that you have, because I know you have several who are very connected to the spirit realm, that use them for confirmation until you get used to discussing, because Grandpa Lyle's not a big talker to start with. This might be a little bit of a voyage to get there. And then, as an aside, what was really interesting to me was the coin and the spirit, the coin for finances and the crystal for spirit fell together. Look to the West and find a spiritual way to help with finances and financial opportunity. If you have already done so, you are on the right path there. So you kind of got two money messages in here. One, you got that in your healing and the energy exchange that you get from that, talking to people about their ancestors once you've gone through this period yourself will be an area of expansion and growth there. And the things that you've already started doing, you are on the right track. This is the right time to do them. Keep going. It will bring some relief from as you sort of redirect where your finances are going. So that's what the
Wow.
bones say.
That is absolutely amazing. I mean, like I've heard you talk about doing bone readings for people and people being so blown away. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. I mean,
Well, thank
yeah,
you. Thank you,
just
Azrael.
incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful and would never in a million years have thought of that being something that I'm supposed to do sort of, career wise in this whole ancestor thing. Or yeah, I'll be really interested too in any advice that I guess Azrael or Samael have about working with them, because I've had friends that have had ancestors come in and they were in their house, and yeah, and things kept breaking. It, like, major, their refrigerators and things like that kept breaking, and the personality of the individuals was so strong that they were kind of coming in and trying to take over and do it their way. And so they felt this heavy, like kind of pushed around by Aunt Bertha kind of thing, who's like, get out of the way, let me show you how to take care of yourself, you're
Aunt,
not doing it
Aunt,
right, kind of thing.
Aunt Bertha was probably like that in life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She was like that in life. And so it was like trying to figure out how to listen to them, because a lot of these I know were very strong personalities in life when they were embodied, and were very like, I'll make them move, like I'll make them do, they were strong, and that's how they got through life. They were
Yeah.
strong and they were loving at the heart of it. But it's like, am I sort of inviting a giant family reunion where everybody has their strong personality of like,
And they're all
everybody
living
has an
there.
opinion, a very strong opinion of how this needs to go,
Mhm.
mixing in with it? Or is there a way of doing that, or of setting up that relationship that can make it so that it's a mutually beneficial thing? Because I realize too that sometimes there are those that really want to be involved, but they also want to sort of be a little bit more in control. And,
Yes.
we don't need a whole lot of power struggle there.
If you want, we can cast again and ask.
Sure.
It's up
Yeah.
to you. I don't know if you've got the time. Do
I
that.
do if you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Thank you for tuning in and joining us today. We will continue next week with the second bone reading and answers to my follow up questions. But here is a song of closing to send you out into the world with blessings.
Oh